Welcome to our deep dive into the strange and often shocking world of medieval punishments. Throughout history, societies have used punishment to enforce laws and maintain order, but in medieval times, the methods employed were often as creative as they were cruel. Today, we explore some of the most bizarre punishments from the Middle Ages, providing a window into the values, fears, and daily life of the past. Let's start with the Brank, also known as the scold's bridle. This was a punishment primarily aimed at women who were accused of scolding or gossiping too much. The device itself was an iron muzzle in an iron framework that enclosed the head. A bridle bit, which was an iron plate with spikes on its surface, was placed in the woman's mouth to press down the tongue and prevent talking. Introduced in England and Scotland in the 16th century, wearing this device not only inflicted pain but also humiliated the wearer publicly. Next is the Judas Cradle, a particularly nasty form of torture. The victim was placed atop a pyramid-shaped seat, with the point inserted into their orifices, then slowly lowered by ropes. The process was designed to stretch the orifice over a long period, potentially over days. The victim was usually naked, increasing the humiliation, and weights could be added to facilitate the effect of the torture. It was a slow and painful process, often resulting in death by impalement. The stocks and pillory were common in medieval Europe. Both devices involved public humiliation but were slightly different in their construction and use. The pillory was an apparatus with holes for the head and hands, where offenders were locked to be mocked, scorned, and sometimes physically abused by passers-by. The stocks held the feet and sometimes the hands of an offender in a similar fashion, immobilizing them in a seated position. Common crimes that could result in being placed in stocks or pillory included drunkenness, disorderly behavior, and theft. Ducking stools were a punishment specifically designed for women who were seen as scolds or witches. The device involved a chair attached to a long wooden beam, fixed as a seesaw on the edge of a river or pond. The woman was strapped into the chair and then repeatedly dunked into the water. This process was not only humiliating but also dangerous and could lead to drowning. Exposure on the wheel or breaking on the wheel was a form of capital punishment. The criminal was tied to a large wooden wheel, and the executioner would then smash the victim's limbs with a hammer or an iron bar. The mangled body might be left on the wheel to die of shock and dehydration, or positioned on a tall pole as a grisly warning to others about breaking the law. Trial by ordeal was a judicial practice by which the guilt or innocence of the accused was determined by subjecting them to a painful or at least an unpleasant experience. One common form was trial by hot water. The accused was forced to retrieve a stone from a boiling kettle. If their hand healed cleanly, they were declared innocent, while infection suggested guilt. Another form was trial by fire, where the accused had to walk 3 paces with a red-hot iron bar. Healing within a certain period was considered proof of innocence. Although more commonly associated with American colonial justice, tarring and feathering has its roots in medieval European law. This punishment was often meted out to thieves, fraudsters, or those who committed acts of dishonesty. The unfortunate person was stripped to their waist, covered in hot tar, and then rolled in feathers. The hot tar caused severe burns, and the feathers added to the humiliation. The victim was then paraded around town, serving as a stark warning to others. This punishment was not only painful, but deeply degrading. An even darker form of imprisonment was the Oblet, literally meaning forgotten place. Unlike regular dungeons, an oubliette was a small vertical shaft in which prisoners were thrown and left to die. The only entrance was a small trap door at the top, through which the prisoner was dropped. These were often so narrow and deep that once inside there was no room to sit or lie down comfortably. Prisoners would be left to die of starvation, dehydration, or injuries sustained from the fall. This punishment was used for those considered too dangerous or unworthy of a trial, effectively erasing them from existence. Pressing to death, or peine forte et dure, was an extreme form of punishment used to compel a plea out of an accused person who refused to plead guilty or not guilty. The procedure was gruesome. The accused was laid flat with a wooden board placed on their body. Then heavy stones or weights were gradually added onto the board. This process was slow and excruciatingly painful, often leading to a prolonged death over hours or even days. This punishment was employed as a last resort to extract a plea, ensuring that a legal trial could proceed. As we've seen, medieval punishments were not only about inflicting pain, but also about enforcing societal norms and values. They were designed to be public spectacles that deterred others by instilling fear of suffering the same fate. These punishments reflect a world where law and order were maintained through brutal and straightforward means that often involved significant suffering and humiliation. This is just a glimpse into the bizarre and brutal world of medieval justice. Stay tuned as we explore more about the dark and often gruesome punishments of the Middle Ages. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more fascinating looks into our past. Your support helps us continue to bring these historical narratives to life.